You've heard that wild discus are more difficult to keep than aquacultured varieties, but what if that wasn't true?
You know, we've been a chemi-pure user for 22 years. It's in our store, in our smaller systems. It's in our maintenance department constantly as a go-to product.
Say what you want about all the new hybrids, but when you look at a wild discus and you know you're looking at the original fish just the way it came out of the river, well, that's hard to beat. There are few aquariums more beautiful than the classic Amazon biotope. Cardinal tetras, hatchetfish, cory cats, and discus. And in this case, wild discus.
It's a great representation of some of the habitats that I saw just recently. So seeing schools of cardinals, rummy-nosed tetras, hatchetfish, and wild discus. Of course, they're not going to be so close together as they are in this aquarium, but this is just a great representation of what you can do with that group of fish and make a themed or habitat-appropriate aquarium.
Mike Tuccinardi with Segrest Farms has the opportunity at work to compare the wild discus with those raised in captivity. He says wild discus are more adaptable than you might have thought.
They're much more adaptable to water conditions than most of the tank-bred varieties, being from the wild and from having different water levels throughout the year, from fluctuations in water chemistry in the wild. Wow, we keep these wild discus in our regular systems, nothing special in terms of care, and they just do great. So after that, I kind of did a little more digging and tried my hand keeping them myself, and have been very successful with them.
Mike recently traveled to South America to see the collection of wild fish, something every aquarium keeper should have the chance to do.
Well, it was really amazing getting to see wild discus habitat on the Rio Negro, and just the water conditions they live with and just how fluctuating that environment is. You could see on the trees where the high water mark was, and we weren't even in the low water season yet, but the incredible variation in the habitat is really interesting. But seeing the dark tannin-rich water, the warmth of it, the lack of plant life was really interesting. There's just not much in the way of aquatic plants there. So mostly what you'll find discus by is driftwood, big branches that have fallen into the water, tree root systems. They'll kind of hang out there in clusters. But it was just amazing to be able to see that in person, to experience aquarium fish habitat in the wild, to see what they would see and snorkel in their water.
Increasingly, he says, wild discus keepers are getting more sophisticated about where their fish come from.
As people are more interested in replicating biotopes and habitats, people want a discus that's from a specific location. So what's great is most of the collectors who collect discus keep track of not just the river system, but the specific location where they catch these. So you can get a discus from Lago Manacaparu, you can get a discus from Rio Madeira, you can get a wild discus from Namunda. All these different spots that you can look up on a map and see where your discus came from. That's really cool.
So if you thought wild discus were out of bounds, maybe it's time to take another look.
It's nice to see the fish in its original wild condition, and they're just stunning fish of their own right.